So my career started from there with what was called an honorary ambulance officer or ambulance bearer back in the time. And so we volunteered our time. We were with a qualified ambulance officer. I was approached to join the ambulance service as a full-time, which led to formal training from that point and qualifications, all the way through. It was very difficult. So in the time that I was an honorary, we had quite a significant aircraft accident that occurred, and we were on scene for a prolonged period of time. It was very hard to process the scene. It's probably the best way I could describe it. That we were prolonged on time. We were waiting for accident investigators to arrive to photograph and document. We had duties in those days, so we removed deceased from public areas. That was part of the role back in those days. And when that job was completed, I come back to the station, and I found it very difficult to understand what was occurring. So with the officers that I was with, one was processing his trauma through dark humour. Another was nonchalant that it even occurred. I was watching another one make a coffee, and I'm just looking, and then there was another officer, and he was sitting in the corner, and he was openly, freely crying. And it was very hard as a young person trying to process what we've just encountered, and then the reactions of what was going on around me. So I was quite confused by it all, and I bolted. I slipped out the back door, and I went home, and I declared I was never coming back ever again. And I received a phone call 3 days later from the superintendent, and then I've told the story before, and it was asking me, well, what did he say for you to come back? And the point was, there was nothing that was said. It was a very short, Terry, this is Ralph. Oh, hi, Ralph. You coming back or what? Well, that was it. That was the phone call. And because he did ring me, I said yes. And then I hung up. There was no debrief. There was no. But there was that sense of connection. There was that sense of family that we had. And I was very young, obviously, in those days, and returning back to that station and that sense of family and being amongst comrades and receiving the reassurance that your abnormal reaction to an abnormal event was perfectly normal. And I think that was it, Ben. I think that was the biggest turning point that I had, and that made me more determined that I was meant to be here, and it continued on ever since.